Welcome to the Picture Booking Podcast. Here's your author, illustrator, and host, Nick Patton.
Hey, Picture Book people. Welcome to episode 23 of the Picture Booking Podcast. Today we have Matt Tavares on the show, and we get to talk a little bit about baseball and picture books. I know the title says baseball, apple pie, and picture books because it sounds so good, right? But we actually don't get a chance to talk about apple pie. I'm sure Matt loves apple pie, and maybe he can log on to Picture Booking and answer that question, whether apple pie is in his desserts, is in his top desserts. And you can check out the show notes where Matt will answer this question, or we'll try to get him to answer this question, at picturebooking.com/23. Well, let's just get right into the episode because it's a good one. How could it not be a good one? We talk baseball, right? Spring is here, fellas. I'm really, I keep saying man to Matt, and I apologize to you guys and to him. Not something I usually throw out there unless I'm sitting with the boys, right? But this is kind of a conversation about the boys, right? We're talking sports. And I know I kind of fit this weird, I really didn't fit in high school anywhere because, I was athletic. So, I was the pitcher of the baseball team. I played baseball. I played basketball. I ran cross country, but I was super slow. So we won't get into that. But I was also good at art, and I loved to draw, and I secretly loved to write. And every once in a while I'd write something and the teacher would read it and be awkward for me. But, I didn't fit in. I wasn't the perfect athlete, your perfect jock person. I wasn't that artistic person either, really. I didn't quite fit either one of those molds. So I really didn't know where to fit in. So this conversation, you get a little more of my dude talk, apparently. So let's go inside the Mulville Library studio on the campus of St. Edward College for my conversation with Matt Tavares. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Good. How are you, Nick?
Wonderful. It's nice to meet you.
Yes, good to hear from you. I'm psyched.
Yeah. I am too. I think I've mentioned several times already too. I'm a huge baseball fan. So the fact that you're doing baseball books, well, I remember, I've been following you probably right from the beginning, 15 years ago or whatever. Because, you were doing picture books that involve baseball. So You've been on my radar for a long time, man. So I really appreciate you taking the time out to talk to me.
Oh, my pleasure.
Okay, let me just say this. As a child, my dream was to be a professional baseball player. So
mine too. Yeah.
Yours too?
Yeah.
So in part of this dream, I was imagining myself playing baseball. You get a lot of night games and stuff. And I thought, well, during the day, these baseball players must not do anything. So I would, I didn't have the concept of, icing or stretching or any of that stuff. I thought, well, I'd just sit in the stands and draw pictures while I wait for the game to start,
You have two jobs.
There you go. So that was going to be my life, right?
Yeah.
So, but basically, that's what you do, man. You get to study the game and then get to create these stories, do these drawings, man. You've got my dream job. That's just unbelievable that you've built a career around baseball. Except
for actually playing in the major league games, I get to do a lot of the stuff that I really loved as a kid. I've always loved to draw. I always loved baseball. There are definitely times when I'm working on one of my baseball books, and it's work, but it's really just combining all these things that I love, that I've always loved. From baseball to art to writing to history, and I feel pretty lucky that I get to spend my days making these books.
Was this a conscious decision when obviously you probably went to, did you go to art school and then from there you were you had a portfolio full of athletic baseball type work, and how did this happen?
Well, no, it wasn't a conscious decision to make a whole bunch of baseball books. it happened more when I was in college. I went to Bates College in Maine. It's a liberal arts school.
Sure.
And I was an art major. And I had to do a senior thesis, just a big project my senior year. And at that point, I was trying to figure out, what I wanted to do after I graduated. And I was leaning towards illustration just because I really like to draw pictures that told stories, and I like to draw people.
Sure.
So I started looking at children's books and just got really excited about trying to do a children's book. And at first, I didn't really even think of myself as a writer. I was an art major. I was more focused on the illustration side of it. And I was trying to find a poem or a fairy tale or something, some public domain text that I could illustrate. And I wasn't finding anything I was really excited about. So I decided to just try to write my own story. And at this point, I really didn't know anything about making children's books. And I think in a way that might have even helped me, because I kind of just dove right in and started and decided to make a book.
Right.
Not really knowing how much work is involved and how hard it is to write a good picture book. And I just thought back to when I was a kid, and, I've always been crazy about baseball. And when I was a kid, I would read anything if it was about baseball. Like I actually wasn't a big reader. Like most of my free time, I would spend drawing. That was really my thing. But I would read anything if it was about baseball. So I decided to make a book about baseball, and I just kind of brainstormed. And, I grew up right near Boston, so I have all these great memories of going to Red Sox games with my dad. And I remembered how I always, every game, like, every single pitch, I was ready to catch a foul ball. Like I had my glove. I always wanted to catch a foul ball.
Nice.
I never did. So I decided to write this story about a kid who goes to a Red Sox game and he gets a foul ball, and the ball turns out to be magic, and sort of just writing about all my childhood dreams of being out there playing at Fenway. So at that point, I wasn't thinking, I'm gonna make a whole bunch of baseball books. It was just this one story, and it ended up being Zachary's Ball, wow. which was my first published children's book. And that's a whole other story, I guess, how that happened. But should I tell that too?
Yeah, well, let's take me. You can't not now.
Right, yeah. Well, yeah. So I had spent my whole senior year making this book, and at first, like, I was so clueless about the children's book industry that by December or so, when I'm like almost maybe 3/4 through the book, I was actually thinking. Maybe by the end of the school year, when we have our big senior exhibit, I'll have like bound printed books that people can buy along with the exhibit, which is absurd because it takes such a long time. But after I graduated, just through sheer luck, it was actually my girlfriend at the time, who she wasn't my girlfriend much longer after that, but it turned out my girlfriend's cousin's best friend's mom was a children's book agent in New York City. Wow. So that was a pretty lucky connection that I had. And just as a favor, this great children's book agent, Rosemary Stamola, she agreed to look at my senior project. And she told me later she wasn't too thrilled about taking time out of her day to look at some senior project. But I got to go down there. I went down, brought my portfolio, showed her my book. I was just, even for this meeting, I was thinking more it was just informational to learn about, what a children's book agent even does, how to go about getting published. And I was just like wearing shorts and a T-shirt and just met, we sat down at her kitchen table. It wasn't even like, I wasn't thinking it was anything that would lead to anything, but she actually liked my book. And she started talking about different places that maybe she thinks she would submit it to. And it was sort of this amazing thing where I left her house. Like I kind of walked out and I was like, wait a second, like, is she my agent now? Like, what just happened?
Oh, and, wow.
So it was wonderful. And then all this amazing stuff just started happening where she sent it to a few places that weren't too crazy about it. And then she sent it to Candlewick Press, and they liked it. And it was unreal walking in to Candlewick for the first time. It was February of 1998, and I was just so out of my mind excited. And I sat down with Liz Bicknell, the editorial director there, and she told me that they really liked the book, but if I chose to publish it with Candlewick, they would want me to basically rebuild the whole thing from the ground up and do the book over. And I was sitting there, and when she said, if you choose to publish the book with us, I was trying not to like jump up and down and scream, and I was trying to act cool, like, okay, yeah, I'll think about it. But yeah, it was amazing. And then I made the whole book over again, and with my editor and my art director, and I felt like those were my children's book writing and illustrating classes, because I didn't do any of that in college. It was all more of a fundamental art, just studio art, painting, color theory, drawing, sculpting. So this is when I really started to learn how a 32-page picture book or a 40-page picture book, just the structure of it, how it works, how the words and the pictures are supposed to work together. We made a lot of changes, like for example, originally I had this whole paragraph where I went on and on about how much my character loves baseball. That was my intro to the story. Mm-hmm. And my editor, just pointed out, instead of having this whole paragraph, we can just show him in his bedroom. So when he loses the baseball, we see his bedroom, and we just see that he's got baseball wallpaper and he's got baseball posters and, baseball stuff all over his room. So then we can cut all these words. So it was stuff like that I had never really thought of before, that I started learning once I started working with Candlewick.
That's such an awesome story. Holy cow.
Yeah, it was all very surreal at the time. I mean, I would be in these meetings at Candlewick, and I was 22 years old at the time, so I was like the youngest one there, and I felt like I had no clue what I was doing, and I was like trying to listen to everyone and learn from what they were saying. And I felt like I should have been like an intern at the meeting, but I was the author of the book, and they would actually listen to my ideas when I suggested things. And it was all pretty amazing, the way that it happened.
And then you've kind of had like a lifelong relationship with Candlewick then.
Yeah, it's been wonderful. I just feel so lucky that I found them when I did. And they're really good at I think they're a little more hands-on than some publishers. And I mean, especially with me at the beginning, because they knew they were kind of taking on a pretty, obviously inexperienced writer and an illustrator. So, I would go in, especially for Zachary's Ball, my first book, I would go in there every month and kind of show them what I had been doing and get feedback and go back and make changes. And, but yeah, now it's, I've done one book a year with them every year since 2004 now. So we've got a pretty good thing going, and I've done a couple books with Hyperion too. Sure. But yeah, I've got a really good thing with Candlewick.
Can you pinpoint when did you start loving baseball? When did it was it or is it just sports, or is baseball specifically? Are you like a big sports guy, or is it like just the fact that you're in Red Sox Nation and everybody's into the Red Sox?
Yeah, it's really just baseball. I mean, I enjoy other sports. Like, I'll watch a Patriots game with friends and enjoy it. But baseball for me has just always been just something I really love. And it's kind of like trying to think back to when I started loving drawing. It's just, as far as I can remember, it's just, I was always drawing, and it was just a part of who I was. Right. And it's kind of like that with baseball. I just have so many happy things that I connect with baseball from, just going to Fenway Park. It's a special place where I have all these great memories of going there as a kid, and memories of going, even when I was older, watching Pedro Martinez pitch at Fenway and being there for all these big moments. And then now taking my kids there, it's just been a part of my life. And I don't know if it would just as soon be football if I lived somewhere else. If I lived in Wisconsin where you do, if I'd be crazy about the Packers or something. It's something about the community aspect to it and the game itself. I just really love everything about it. I love having the game on the radio. Yep. If I'm drawing or something and there's a day game, I love just listening to a baseball game.
Well, this is the best time. Well, for me, I'm a Brewers fan. I'm actually I lived in Green Bay, and because I kind of still do live in Green Bay, kind of close to it. And so obviously I'm a huge Packer fan, but baseball is my sport. So this is for a Brewer fan. March is a good time because then
Yeah.
you get all the day games going on now. So you can just turn on the computer, you hit a day game, you just just calmly listen. You don't have to worry who wins or loses, right?
Right. Just to hear the sound of the game.
Yep.
And that's another great thing about baseball too, is the timing of it where, you've been through this winter, for those of us who live in these cold places, and it's March, and all of a sudden you can start seeing, every night there are highlights of these spring training games, and they're down in Florida, and it's 80 degrees and sunny, and it's just kind of just a sign that spring is coming. And then, opening day, it's kind of, you see that green grass, and it's kind of the first sign that it's not going to be winter forever, and it's going to be summer. And then it brings you right into fall, straight through the summer. It's kind of just every day there's a baseball game.
Yep. I love it so much.
I realized I didn't ever answer your original question.
What was my original question?
About if I plan to be a baseball writer.
Yeah.
Quickly, I'll answer that.
Sure.
I really just had that one idea for a baseball book, and I had all these other ideas that weren't baseball books. And I was even, I think, a little worried at first. I didn't want to be pigeonholed into being thought of as just a sports book writer.
Right.
I think I was kind of worried about that. And I've done, different kinds of books too, but I think over the years I've kind of realized, that's something I'm really passionate about, and it's something I love. And I think that, if I'm going to spend a year on a book, or 10 months or however long it takes, it's got to be something I really care about. And I think, even if I make a bunch of baseball books, I don't really care if I'm looked at one way or the other. It's just something that I love to do.
Well, if you're going to spend all this time, it's got to be a passion project. A picture book is a huge investment in time and energy. So yeah, it's got to be something you absolutely love.
Yeah.
So, do you so the first book was fiction, and then you've kind of shifted over, and you do a ton of nonfiction now with baseball stories, and then your other work too.
Yeah.
Was that a conscious decision, or was that something that just naturally happened?
It happened pretty naturally. I did, my first few books that I wrote were fiction, and then I had a few projects, I illustrated a couple fairy tales, and then I illustrated a book called Lady Liberty, a biography by Doreen Rappaport. Mm-hmm. And that was my first nonfiction book. And it was by far the hardest project I've ever worked on. It was just having to mix the research into all the other parts of the process. It just made everything take a long time. If I was painting a picture, where with the other books I could just kind of be in my own little world painting or drawing. Now I had to be checking all my facts and details, and double checking and